Good morning, good morning. Thank you everybody for joining. Good to see everybody here. I see a lot of familiar faces in the chat already, so thank you again for joining. And again, if you are joining live, then let us know where you are coming from. Good to see you. I'm going to put up the map here and see where everybody is tuning in from, since that's always fun. See a lot of familiar faces here today. So, I don't have a whole lot of a plan today. I will be honest. But of course, going to answer your questions and chat about ATEM Mini and streaming and live video production and things like that. So, never a shortage of topics. I do have a couple things I did set up, which I guess is the closest thing I have to a plan. I have an Apple TV here, the same one I had last time, to demonstrate the NDI camera, which is pretty fun. I was testing out with my phone, so I can show how that works. I've also got a Chromecast. I managed to remember to bring it this time. Talk about that a little bit later because it's not perfect, I will say. And I actually have a new camera as well. I got the Sony ZV-1, so I have that set up as my backup camera today. So gonna take a look at how that looks on the stream as well, and it's got some pretty cool features as well. So yeah, awesome to see everybody. This is a great crowd, a lot of folks from all over the place. I thought I saw somebody from New Zealand earlier. I'm not sure why the dot didn't show up. If you're from New Zealand, just type in New Zealand again, and then we'll get your dot on the map. And then we'll have every continent covered except Antarctica. So that's awesome. Well, I am going to also try something new, which is to try to talk a little bit slower, since I've been hearing some people don't like how fast I talk. And I'm going to try. I'm going to see how it goes. I'm going to chill out a little bit today. I've got some coffee. I might take a break to drink a sip of coffee now and then, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, if you do think that I talk too fast, let me know, because, you know, I like to just get the things out of my face as fast as I can. All right, so let's switch back, and I'll take a look at the chat, and let's start. Let's get on a roll here. Oh yeah, so this is the new camera. Well, this is the view from the new camera, and I'll see if I can show it to you in a second. But it's, you know, I've got it in my same spot over here, so you can see my desk. And this is the Sony ZV-1, which the autofocus in it is really good. Like, if I just hold, I don't have anything to hold up my coffee cup. It's like it can just focus on whatever you put into it, which is cool. Like, hey, I want to show you this memory card reader. Look at that. So yeah, it's fun. I'm hoping this is gonna be my main camera for streaming when I'm back on the road eventually, which at this rate, who knows how long that'll be, probably like next year, but we'll see. All right, let's take a look at the chat and see what we've got, see if we've got any questions. Again, reminder, if you do have any questions for me, then make sure you put my name in front of the question, and that makes it show up better on my screen. So, all right. Sony versus Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera. Think about getting a new camera. Sony makes great cameras, I will say. I haven't used like the super fancy ones, but they're great cameras. However, the Blackmagic camera integrates with the ATEM Mini, which is super cool. And I still don't have one. Eventually I might get one, but they're kind of expensive, and I have cameras that work fine. So I'm not like eager to spend that much money again. But yeah, it's super cool that they're able to like integrate with so that the ATEM Mini control software can actually like tell the camera to record. It can control the color grading on it. Super cool. So I really do want to try that out. And if that's something that you think you need to be able to do, is like remote control the camera, then that's probably the better way to go if you're using it with an ATEM Mini. But the, you know, Sony cameras are great too. It's just you have to control it like I'm doing here, which is, you know, focusing on the camera, using the camera itself, not controlling it from the A10 Mini. That's, I think, really the only consideration. Again, I'm sure there's, you know, a million opinions about what camera is the best, what lenses are the best, whatever. Like, everyone has their own take on it, so don't overthink it too much. All right. Stan says, oops, slipped up. So, so let me stick on this topic for a second. Blackmagic cameras. Yeah. The A10 Mini talks to the Blackmagic cameras over the HDMI connection. It's protocol over HDMI, which is super weird, but cool that it works, because you don't need to run like a separate cable. Like with SDI cameras, which is the higher end, more professional, you have to have a cable running both directions. I mean, two cables, right? One is the video feed, one is sending back the control commands. With the HDMI link, what they did is they just put it into the same cable, and that's really cool. So it's a lot easier to use. It's a lot, you know, simpler. So, but yeah, it does mean that it only works with the Blackmagic cameras, and I really doubt that any other camera manufacturer, would have the ability to add the control software into their own cameras. But yeah, that's the trade-off there. Okay, so let me take a look at this. Let's talk about this for a second. Stan says, can I use the video assist recorder like a HyperDeck to play media? So the HyperDeck, I don't have it here, but it's a rack mount device. It's meant for like using with their higher end switchers. Records to SD cards. It has a very little screen. It's not meant to be a video monitor. It's just a recorder, and it can also be controlled by the A10 Mini, which is also super cool. So the A10 Mini can actually send a command to tell it to load a particular clip and start rolling that clip. So that's great, and that's a super tight integration there. The Video Assist is their monitor that has like a 5-inch screen or 7-inch screen on it. So it's much more like meant to be a actual monitor so you can see what your camera is doing. That, of course, works fine to play video into the A10 Mini. However, it can't be controlled by the A10 Mini. And that's because there's no network on it. There's no network jack on it. So it's just a video player. You would have to control the playback from the Video Assist device itself. And it will work fine for that. But it's just like any other video playback device at that point. It doesn't have the tight integration with the A10 Mini like the HyperDeck does. So hopefully that makes sense. The audio sounded like auto follow video. No, it's just I turned my head away from the microphone, which is super directional. So I will keep that in mind. Okay, so Adam says, is there any way to start a stream on Facebook from the A10 Mini Pro without hitting the Go Live button on the Facebook website? I should at some point actually like try Facebook Live just to test it out so I know a little more about it. The way this would have to work is that Facebook would need this idea of like auto start. So YouTube does this, for example. You can put YouTube into auto start mode. So if I show, let me see if my buttons are set up right. Yeah. So this button, this enable auto start button, is if that is checked, then as soon as the A10 starts sending video up to YouTube, YouTube will make the video go live. So if Facebook has that option, then it would work. Jonathan says, yeah, there is a auto start and auto stop option, which would work. So just make sure that is checked, and it'll work with Facebook. Cool. Thank you for answering that, Jonathan. Tim says, order my A10 Mini Pro on June 15th, shipped on the 18th. That's like not that long ago, and it arrived an hour ago. That's awesome. Well, congrats on getting yours. That's a very quick turnaround. That's awesome. Toby says, is there a way to have one camera going into the ATEM Mini twice, but with one of the inputs cropped or zoomed in? Let me think. Well, I mean, you can use the DVE now to do like, ooh, I didn't do that right. That was pretty. What the heck is going on? Oh, I think my keyer is set. That was really cool. Try that again. Wow. My upstream keyer. I see what happened. Well, I have to show this off because this is really, really funny. My macro is missing one of the buttons. So let me see if we can actually fix it live. So here's my this is the state it's in now, which is oh shoot. I can't show you my because as soon as I run the macro, then it's going to change all the settings. Okay, so the macro, let me open up the source to the macro. It is cut in 3 seconds, and what it does is it says program outputs camera 1, so you are looking at the camera. Then it says make the key input also camera 1, so that's adding it to that keyer layer, and then it scales it. So it scales it up 10%, waits 2 seconds so that these settings take effect, turns the keyer on air so that you see the zoomed in one, waits 3 seconds, and then pops back, turns the keyer off. So you might notice that there's one thing missing in here. It sets the key fill input, which is that, and it did not actually change the keyer to DVE. So when I have the chat on here, now I'm in LumaKey. You can't see my computer because I'm using it to show the chat. Can I? Yeah. So basically, if I change this fill source, which is what the macro is doing, right? Fill source to camera 1. Again, okay, I'm trying to show you this. This is not going to work. I can't LumaKey. I can't change the settings of. Can I position in the right spot? No, this is hilarious. Oh my God. I thought I had a way to show you stuff on here that didn't mess with the feed. Can I use my other ATEM for this? This is hopeless. Okay. These are the buttons I'm trying to show you. My macro is missing a couple of things. It's missing actually telling it to change to DVE. And so instead, it was set on LumaKey, but the key source was set to the ATEM, which is showing the chat. So basically, I was overlaying the computer screen that's showing the chat as the key source, with the fill source being my camera, which if I change it to this, then when I zoom in, okay, this makes sense in my head, and I know it does not make sense to anybody else. So I'm going to cut this out, and we're going to go back to hopefully things looking right. Okay, what I was trying to do was demonstrate. If anybody else was following that, good job. What a disaster. Okay, did I just lose everybody in the chat? Yeah, pretty much. Okay. What I'm trying to show you is in here, when it's set to Luma, which again, is going to mess up what I'm actually showing you on the stream. Okay, here we go. Now you can see me again. My macro did not change the DVE tab, and so it left it on Luma with the key source being the ATEM, which was showing the YouTube comments. So all that text was being used as a key source to show where only the black parts of the text on the screen we're letting the other camera through. Does that make more sense? I need to diagram this out so that like I can actually show what's going on. Anyway, to fix this, what I have to do is go actually into my macro and say key type. So usually what I do is I just go find another macro that does work and I copy things around. So, okay, key type, set that to DVE. Now that's going to actually change it to the DVE tab, which then should work fine. So if I reload this macro in the software control app, let's go ahead and restore that, only the macros, otherwise things get really messed up. And now when I'm back here and showing the chat, then when I hit this pop in, now it works. Look at that, because it properly set the DVE. Okay. That's what I was trying to do. So to answer your question about can you have one camera going into the ATEM twice with one of the inputs cropped, sort of. So you run one cable and then you use the upstream keyer to zoom in, and you can then turn on the upstream keyer in DVE mode so that it can zoom in, and that's how you can use the same camera at like a second angle. The only downside here is that this is all still 1080, so the camera is going to feed a 1080 signal into the ATEM Mini, which means whatever you've so you're zooming in, so you're losing resolution, right? So you can't like add the pixels back in. And I can show this to you if I go and let's see, turn off that, go over DVE, main camera. Let's set the size to 2, and then is this? Oh, and then reset position to 0. So now I'm zoomed in, and if you look at my glasses, like here, you'll probably notice there's some pixelation on that line. It might be not zoomed in enough. Let's go closer. So yeah, now you can see on my glasses, it's getting really pixely. And that's because we're still just at 1080. We're just zooming in. But for like small stuff like that, it works fine, which is kind of fun. Okay, take a look at the chat again. That was a fun little diversion, but I did fix my macro in the meantime, so cool. Yeah, this does make more sense once you actually get to try out the ATEM and start using the upstream, downstream keyers. It's a little bit confusing to just describe it in theoretical terms. At some point I should do an actual video explaining how it works, but I'm sure there's other videos on YouTube that explain how the keyers work. Like, this is not a new concept in the ATEM Mini. It has been around for a very long time in the world of video production, so I'm sure there's a bunch of videos already online about that. Sorry, Victor. Okay. I'm out of sync? Is that... I'm running the mic through the camera like I always do. I shouldn't be out of sync. Because I'm not using the analog input, so there's no audio delay setting. Anybody else think I'm out of sync? All right. Let me take a sip of coffee and calm down from that. Okay, people are saying the sync is fine. I'm guessing it's just a playback problem then. Just refresh YouTube and sometimes it fixes it. Okay. Cool. Fix once I refresh. Thanks everyone. Okay. I love this question. I was experimenting with this on the weekend, and I have it working. I have it so close to working. If you want to essentially completely remote control an ATEM Mini so that it is somewhere else, not next to you, controlling it, but then also see it, you can do it. You totally can do it. And I have it working, but I'm trying to package it up in a way that's like I can hand it to somebody and like just give it to them. They turn it on and then it just like works and I can connect to it without them doing any fiddling. So it's a lot of networking hassle, which like I have like a reasonable level of knowledge of networking concepts, and I have been struggling to get this to work. Basically what I want to be able to do, you know, I might even have like a diagram up here. Let me see if I have, I'm pretty sure I have a Keynote file. Yeah, okay. Here's what I'm trying to do. Which scene am I loading here? I am showing you this one. And there's me. Okay. Here's what I'm trying to do. I want to have my office at home on this side here. And that's where like I sit. I want to ship someone a box with an ATEM Mini in it and a router. And when they turn that on, it establishes a VPN connection in to my network at home. And then I can get to the other devices on the network. So there's a handful of different VPN technologies available. I've been using WireGuard lately. It works really well. It's super easy to set up. I mean, relatively easy compared to like OpenVPN or other things. The problem is I can get this to work on a Raspberry Pi. I actually have that running here. This is not my house, but I'm on a separate network, and I can access any servers at my house over VPN as if they were local on the network. And that's super cool. I love it. It's a little bit hard to explain how to set it up. So if I wanted to like create a tutorial about how to do this, there's a few steps. It involves a command line, and it involves a bit of work, and I'm not super happy about that. So I'm trying to find an easier version that also isn't $1 million. So there is, so yeah, I'm trying to basically get a router so that you can just boot it up. It dials in to the network at home, and then I can establish a connection to other devices on that network. I have it, like I said, I can get this working on a Raspberry Pi. So I might just do that because I know it will work. I spent way too long on Sunday struggling with networking settings on other devices to try to make it work without having to deal with command line instructions on a Raspberry Pi. But that is what I'm thinking. So basically, the short answer to this question is you need to be able to access the ATEM Mini's IP address somehow. So you're going to need some sort of VPN to get into that network. It's actually a lot easier the other way around, where if you have the ATEM Mini in a network that has a VPN, then like I have a VPN server at home, so I can, from not at home on the road, I can VPN into my home network and then get to any of the machines on the network. One of them being the ATEM Mini, and now I can control it. So that's the easy way to set it up. The harder way is what I'm trying to do, where the ATEM Mini is the travel one. To get the video feed out of the ATEM Mini, so you're probably going to be streaming directly from the ATEM Mini Pro up to YouTube, which you can control over the remote connection, right? But you want to be able to see the multi-view. And that's where it gets a little bit weird. So I don't think I brought it with me, but I have a tiny little H.264 encoder, which is it has a network jack and an HDMI port. And it plugs into the output HDMI out on the ATEM Mini. And when that's set to multi-view, it's then streaming the multi-view over H.264. However, it can also be a RTSP server. So that is a device on the network. I can use VLC on my laptop to pull up that stream and then see it over the network. I wanted to have this all figured out to be able to demo it today on the stream, but I wasn't happy enough with having the Raspberry Pi be the way to do it. So maybe next time. But yeah, basically you need some HDMI encoder separately from the Mini so that you can see the multi-view out of the ATEM Mini. Super cool though. All right. Um, oh yeah, travel cases. I have one which I really like. Let me go run and grab it. It's just right over here. This is a Nintendo Switch case, and it just so happens that it fits the A10 Mini almost exactly. I might just cut this out because it's kind of in the way. But the A10 Mini basically sits right here, and then it just sort of folds up. I can't show it to you, obviously, because they're busy. But it does fit it very well. And the only downside is it doesn't fit the power cord. The power cord is too big for that. But other than that, that works really well. Yeah, ATEM, the Nintendo Switch cases somehow are the right size. Jonas, yeah, so Raspberry Pi, that's what I'm actually using for my VPN right now, and it works great, but like I said, it's a little bit complicated to set up, and I'm not a huge fan of that. Um, all right. Oh yeah, people are saying Nintendo Switch cases. Super cool. Greg Connors says, voice activated auto switching. Is this possible on the A10 Mini Pro? So I think it's the Roland that has this feature where it'll pay attention to the audio coming in from the different inputs. So if you're running separate audio into each input, camera input, it'll auto switch based on that level. A10 Mini does not have anything like that. I don't think any of the A10s actually have that feature. But you could theoretically write software to do that because, again, you can send commands to the A10 Mini over the network. You could write software to monitor the audio coming from the different inputs. I was actually taking a look at it earlier, and there is in the SDK for the A10 Mini. So if you go to if you go to software control and look at the audio tab, the bars are responding to the audio levels, right? So like the ATEM knows like what the audio levels are for each input, and it's sending those levels that over the network because this software control interface is receiving this data over the network. So I was looking into it, and there is, like, if you look at the SDK documentation for the A10 Mini, you can find docs on like how to get this data over the network, which means you could write software that monitors these different inputs and then auto switches. So totally doable. That would just have to run, like, it's not doing any actual analysis itself, right? It's not like monitoring audio signals. It's just looking at these numbers. So it'd be a really minimal piece of software which could run on the same computer that has software control, or you could run it on a Raspberry Pi so that it's more portable and doesn't require a separate computer. So totally doable. It'd be a lot of fun. I really want to try that. Cajoling Technologies says, have you thought about using a 4G LTE modem? Yeah, so basically that's my idea with the VPN is whatever, like, I want to ship a kit, and then whatever internet connection that thing has, it'll go and VPN back into my house. And if that internet connection is Wi-Fi, that should work fine. If there is no Wi-Fi available, then I would like to be able to attach a LTE modem. But it doesn't matter what the internet connection is, I still need a VPN connection. All right. Who else is in the chat? Pickle Jar says, what lens do you recommend for the Blackmagic 4K camera? It really depends on, I guess, what you're using it for. This lens is a 12 to 35 zoom I now that I have things like set up, I don't need it to be a zoom lens. I could use a fixed focal length. I really like the Lumix 15 millimeter lens. It's like it's really short one, and that's a pretty wide angle, so it's good for like a sort of like desk scene. But but yeah, it depends on if you're going for a look of, you want to see an entire desk, or if you want to put your camera farther away and get like a nice long lens. So I would look for one that if it is a zoom lens and it's on the Blackmagic camera, I would look for one that has a motorized zoom, because that means you can actually control the zoom from the ATEM software, which is super cool. And not all the zoom lenses have a motor in them. So that's one thing to keep in mind as well. Burn says, why are you streaming from the stairway? So the reason is because I am not in my studio, because the studio is being worked on, and it is being painted this week, which I'm actually really excited about. And let me see if I have pictures, because I am like super excited about all the colors that we ended up choosing, and what it is going to let me do down there. So yeah, I'm upstairs above the studio right now, and that is why I am here. So okay, yeah, I found the pictures. Let me open these up in a tab so we can see them. So this one. This is what it's going to look like. This is a Photoshop mock-up. The floor is real. The floor is in there now. And the walls are just bare white right now. So I'm going to get... I found a nice bright bluish white for this part. This wall is 18% gray. So that whole wall, which goes all the way back there, 18% gray. So that means I can light it to look black or white depending on the lighting that I use. And then if you'll notice the way that I've got these angles, this corner is this teal. So if I'm shooting into that corner, you'll only see that color. If I shoot into this corner, because it is so low down here, you're only going to see a white background. And then if I shoot into this corner, it's only this color. And then this is the only sort of weird corner where it's gray and white split. And then where before I had the roll of paper mounted up across here, you can kind of see the screw holes still. So I'll probably put that back, but I haven't actually decided. And then that means I can roll paper down to cover up the window and this bar if I need another flat background. So yeah, this is what it's going to look like, and hopefully it's going to happen this week. It's a little bit of a mess right now, but I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited about it. And yeah, that is why I'm up here, which is I'm not in the stairway. I am next to the stairs. This is like, the stairs that go up to the loft, but I'm sort of tucked into the corner where normally the kitchen table is. All right. How else are we doing? What else have we got in the chat? Ray says, I saw a demo on live streaming with the ATEM Mini Pro and it looked choppy. 1080p at 60. How do you make your streaming smooth? I'm at 30 right now because there's not a lot of reason to use 60 frames a second. For this kind of thing, if for gameplay, that makes more sense. Although I haven't had any problems streaming at 60. I have noticed that some cameras, if they output 4K or scale 4K down to 1080 themselves, something is going wrong with the connection to the ATEM Mini, and that's where you'll start to get some weirdness. I've had coworkers who've solved all their problems by setting their cameras into 1080 mode. So that could be it. But other than that, I guess you would need a just make sure that your internet connection is stable and try to get everything into 1080 so it's just the same. The ATEM Mini does handle scaling stuff, but it's better to make it do less work. Rick says, some people have asked about a program monitor with a USB tied to my computer. I opened QuickTime Player on a separate monitor from my computer's HDMI out. Oh yeah, that's a good way to do a confidence monitor for the Talent. So of course, if you're using the HDMI out from the ATEM to record, or as your multi-view like I've got here, where you don't want the Talent to see this because it's a little distracting. If you want to send them a program feed, your HDMI port's tied up. But yeah, Rick says he was able to use the USB out on the from the camera, open up in QuickTime, put that on a separate monitor from your computer, and show that to them, which is a great solution. It could even be a separate computer. Doesn't even have to be the same computer. It's a good idea. Tim says, where is the garbage truck today? That is a good question. They are doing construction down the corner, and they've torn up the entire entrance to the alley. So I think maybe just no garbage truck this week because they can't get in or out. Okay. I saw two questions that are related. So let's talk about this. Etienne says, what's the best way to get a Skype call during a live stream into the ATEM Mini Pro? Very closely related to that is, how are you using the Apple TV in your workflow? So let me talk about that for a second. So the Apple TV I've got today plugged into, I got that plugged into here. This is my ATEM Mini that is not streaming live, and I just now realized I have the wrong graphic on there, which I use to make sure I know which one I'm looking at. So let me swap that graphic real quick. If I go into, here it is, test. Okay. So this is my test ATEM Mini. This is the one that's sort of behind the chain. And you'll notice that picture, that the Apple TV, it's got a still shot on it because that's how this app works. It will freeze frame on whatever the last thing it saw is when the signal is disconnected. So I can't, that's not a live video. I can't show you anything. I can't point to things. But the ATEM Mini on the top is the one we're looking at here. And the Apple TV is running an app called NDI Monitor. So if I back out of this app, this is the Apple TV. Let me turn on the Apple TV sounds. Let's see, does this work? Let me double check. I'm not. Yeah, okay. So the Apple TV is running this app called Sienna NDI TV or something. And when there is an NDI source on the network, then it'll show up in this list. Click. Come on. There it is. Okay. And there's no NDI source on the network right now because my phone is off. But if I'm going to mute the audio when I turn that on. Okay. So you can see that select NDI source. It found my phone, which is running an app called NDI Camera or something like that. And now you can see through my phone there. And of course, I'm showing you the multi-view, but if I were to switch to showing that full screen, there's probably a delay. I don't really know what the delay is like here because now you're hearing the audio from my camera, not from the NDI app. Do I dare switch? Let's try it. Now you're hearing the NDI audio from my phone, so it probably sounds like crap. But it's probably better in sync. Let me know how the sync is anyway. So I'm going to switch back to the microphone. Now it's back on the microphone audio from that mic up there. But this is just now broadcasting the video feed from my phone into the Apple TV, which is then running into the ATEM. So this is pretty cool because I can now either like when it's on multi-view, now I can like show you stuff, right? So now I can show you the two ATEM minis. Also, this stand, let me just plug the stand again. It's a 3D printed stand, and it's holding this other ATEM mini up just above the wires on the other one so that it can actually sit flush here. And I put the little rubber bumpers on. You can see them down there. And that way it sits at just the right spot so that I can have it look like one continuous control surface. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And then this, while I've got this up, this is the new camera. Pretty camera. And I have that running into the other ATEM. Cool. So yeah, and then when I close this NDI app, it just freeze frames on that. So that is how I'm using the Apple TV in this workflow. The other part of that question was, how do you get Skype guests in? So it turns out that Skype also can provide an NDI source. So you have to go and get the, I think it's called the Creator Edition of Skype. And it's something like that. Anyway, it's a separate download, and you have to you have to download a separate version of Skype, then enable NDI in that app, and it will then provide an NDI feed that the Apple TV can read. So I've tested now a few different NDI to HDMI converters, essentially. And the first one I tried was on a live stream, and I forgot to test the audio ahead of time. Totally did not work. It was a complete fail. Go watch the live stream. I left it up, even though it's a complete mess. That was the Bird Dog. And from what I've learned, I don't think there is a solution to make that work. And the second one I've tried is the Magewell. They make one also. It does work fine with Skype. And however, the unit I got, something was wrong with it, and the USB power, it couldn't be powered via USB. It could only be powered by power over Ethernet, which I love that it has power over Ethernet as an option, because that means that like it's just one cable. Well, I guess two, because you need HDMI also. But that's super cool. But I wasn't willing to spend $400 on that to have a broken USB power port. So I returned it. But it did work fine with Skype. And I actually liked the interface of that one a little better anyway than the Bird Dog. There's another one, the Delta N2H, which I'm going to get on loan soon to play with. And they've done some testing with Skype, and it also does work. So I'm looking forward to trying that one out. And in the meantime, the Apple TV works fine. And it's actually like not that much different in price compared to all these other things. It's a little bit cheaper. So you have to buy the Apple TV, and then you have to buy the NDI TV app. And that ends up being a little bit cheaper than all these dedicated devices, dedicated hardware. So that's something to consider, I guess. But it is also, of course, an Apple TV, so it can do a lot more. You can, like, for example, AirPlay from a computer or a phone into that. So if I wanted to show you my phone, like share a, screen share from my phone into the ATEM. Why don't we try that? So if I go back to the ATEM, I haven't actually set this up yet, but I should be able to just do screen mirroring to that Apple TV. And yeah, there it is. Look at that. That was like zero effort, and I didn't even set it up ahead of time. So now you can just see whatever's on my phone. And if I go into, well, I don't have an app that's going to work in landscape mode, but obviously if I put my phone into landscape mode, it'll, change. So that's pretty cool. I think the Apple TV ends up being a pretty good device for that, because it is so flexible. and yeah, with the NDI app, now any NDI sources can show up in the Apple TV. That NDI app also actually has a web interface. So like if you go find the IP address of your Apple TV, you can load up this interface and then choose the sources here. So you don't even have to use the remote of the Apple TV, which again, super, super cool. Yeah, I just noticed that we have like a lot more people here compared to when we started. So welcome everybody. Thanks for joining. We are talking about all sorts of fun stuff, but primarily around the A10 Mini. And yeah, so with the Apple TV, with Skype, you'll have to do you have to make sure that you've got the audio routed right. And I don't have it set up to do that right now, but totally doable. And then you can use that to bring in remote guests. So yeah, live phone calls, remote guests over Skype. And it should work just fine. So at some point, I'll probably try to get someone to join a live stream one of these days and actually try it on Skype again. And hopefully it won't be a complete fail like last time. All right. Where was I in the chat? So, Cajoling Technology says, Willie Howe has a solution for the VPN using a UniFi security gateway. Yeah. I might have to look at that. I haven't tried looking at the UniFi hardware. That's actually what I use for all my networking stuff. So, but I haven't thought about using it for the travel kit. But that's a thought, because they do have some good VPN and pretty nice UI for setting all that stuff up too. Again, if you have a question for me, please make sure to mention my name in front like this so that it shows up orange on my screen. Chuck Taylor says, is there any way to use animated graphics and stream via the A10 Mini Pro, or am I stuck using it as a webcam into OBS and streaming via the computer? So there is no like built-in graphics generators aside from still like the one still image you can show at a time. You can load in 20 graphics, but you can only show one at a time. No built-in animation stuff at all. And that means your options for doing animated graphics are you generate the graphics outside of the ATEM and you bring it in via HDMI. So you can then, that's basically what I'm doing here, right? So I've got the chat, which is on a separate computer here. And so it looks like this, right? I've got a web browser open and it's got the chat here. And then I'm able to, in the A10 Mini, go and scale and key out the black so that you would only see. So this background is actually just slightly off black, which is why it's not keyed out, right? So you could do it with green as well, depending on what your graphics are. And then that's how you can, so any graphics generator, graphics app, there's a good one called H2R Graphics that has a bunch of stuff built in, like lower thirds and countdown generators and all that kind of stuff. Your other option is what you're saying here, which is using it as a webcam, pulling the ATEM into OBS as a webcam, and then adding stuff in OBS over it. Honestly, that is a lot more flexible because you can do better, you get better control over things like transparency, as opposed to being limited to the keyer in the ATEM. You can also bring in a lot more sources at the same time. So that's a good way to do it too. But yeah, it does mean your computer is the one streaming, which I don't like to do, which is why I like having the A10 Mini stream. So I do it this way instead. Camille says, no garbage truck. Yeah. Cool. All right. People are helping out with the H2R graphics question. Can I run through my setup? Yeah, I can talk about what I've got here. So, the camera that I showed a second ago is that Sony ZV-1. I like how small it is. I'm planning on taking that on the road once I eventually get back on the road. Doing streams using this plugged into probably the A10 Mini. I haven't decided if I'm gonna bring the A10 Mini for when I travel. If not, I'm gonna bring some sort of other separate hardware encoder, and then on my desk, so you can't actually see it, but this computer is the one that's doing chat. And this is a full screen web browser with the YouTube chat interface open. You can kind of see it on the screen here. I've talked about that setup in a separate video, separate live stream, but it's basically just custom CSS and JavaScript that restyles the chat window to look like this, so that when I click one of these comments, it pops up. That's on this computer. This computer is also the one that I use to show the countdown, which is another full screen web browser. And I close the tab, but there's the map at the beginning of the stream showing where everybody's joining from. That's again tapping into the chat, looking for, well, rather removing words like hello or names, and looking for cities and geocoding them, dropping a pin on the map. That's that. Here I've got a Stream Deck, and this is controlling both A10 Minis. So I've got two A10 Minis. One is doing the streaming. One is doing just gives me a few extra inputs, but it also means I can show you the multi-view. So if I go to, like, this button will turn that A10, the Stream Deck I've started to use more and more because I can send a command to both A10 Minis at the same time. So when I press this button, it's going to tell that second A10 Mini to turn its HDMI output into multi-view, which is what you're seeing here right now. It's full screen web browser. And then it will tell the other A10 Mini to switch to input 4. So now you can see the multi-view. And now I get one button to do both of those. So as soon as I started using the Stream Deck for this, it meant that I'm able to do a lot less hunting around for, like, which button do I press, make sure I'm pushing things on both A10 Minis. So I have it set up to send commands to both A10 Minis at the same time, and it's a lot more flexible that way. So these two A10 Minis, basically the output of one is connected into the input of the other, and then I've just got my other things connected into that. So I've got actually my main camera is running through an HDMI splitter, and actually this one, but yeah, main camera is running through an HDMI splitter so that my camera feed appears in both A10 Minis. And that's so that when I do go to this view, you still do see me. And otherwise it would just be, my other inputs. So I've got my camera split into both A10 Minis on input 1. And then, for right now, today, I've got the Apple TV plugged in. I've got the Chromecast, which we haven't even talked about yet. And then this computer for the chat. I've got this iPad, which I haven't used very much because the Stream Deck has been working really well today, rather. This is the iPad app called Strata Macros, which I've talked about a bunch of times before. And look, I can actually show it to you, and it focuses on it now. And Strata Macros is basically giant buttons that run macros on an A10 Mini. The downside is that it can only talk to one at a time, which is why I've started using the Stream Deck, because I have two of them, I often need to do things on both, and this can only control one of them. So if I wanted to switch to multi-view, I have to press a button here and then also press a button on the Mini itself. And then this is my main computer, which is running, I've got the YouTube window open. I've got, the chat that is like showing me real-time chat, and not the one I used to show on the screen. I've got the ATEM control software up here. You can't really see the screen in this shot, but I've got the ATEM control software, and this computer, or rather this monitor, is fed by, so I've got one cable plugged into my computer, USB-C. I've got a dongle, and it has two HDMI ports on it. One HDMI port goes to this monitor, one goes into the A10 Mini, and you can see it down here. So I've got my this monitor I can now share into the stream. So that is that is how I can screen share and, you know, also see what I'm doing. This monitor, of course, is the multi-view out of the main A10 Mini. So what else? Stream Deck. This is my coffee. Camera, microphone. Okay, light. That's what I'm missing. Camera is Lumix G7. That is a $500 camera. It's fine. It's obviously not the best Lumix, but it's good enough. I've got it mounted right above the monitor there. This microphone, it's a little Movo microphone. It's plugged into the camera, so it just has a 1/8" jack running to the camera. No audio sync issues that way. And then no power, no batteries, which is great. And that is the microphone situation. It is pretty directional, so if I do turn my head, it probably sounds quite different. So I have to remember to try to talk that direction. And then this light is this panel. And let me open up the NDI app again. And pick it up. Nope, not yet. Come on, go. Well, okay. Yeah, sometimes it takes a minute for the NDI stuff to sync up. Anyway, this light is a panel light that's like a 1 foot by 2 foot rectangle. Oh, there it is. And oops, not that one. That one. So this is what it looks like. So yeah, camera, microphone. I've got these little arms that are monitor arms with a bunch of things so that I can clamp on the microphone stand. That tripod head is attached to one of them. A lot of this came from Caleb Pike's video where he suggested how to attach these things. So I've got like a ball head attached to this monitor plate, which is really weird, but it does work. This one's a little bit nicer. This one's bolted into the monitor head. I tried to do some cable management there. And then, that light panel is like a bicolor LED. And, yeah. And then this I just got, this desk thing to give myself a little shelf. And it means I can hide stuff under there. There's that USB-C splitter, network, USB, 2 HDMI outs. And it's all just kind of hidden under there, which then also is a shelf, so I can put the Apple TV on it. And also it is a wireless charging pad for my phone, so that's super cool. And I think that's it. Cool. That was a little studio tour. I should have left the Apple TV in a better spot. Oh well. So yeah, hopefully that was helpful. Studio tours are fun. I should do a proper one though. I think once I get back down into the main studio and set this back up again, I will do an actual run through. Let's talk about and then when I was doing the NDI test, I guess people are saying there was no sync issues, which is awesome. All right. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're almost at an hour. I think let's just take a look at the last couple questions, and we do have a large crowd here though. Do I have more time to talk about editing macros in XML? I think that's all I'm going to talk about today on that. because I ran through a little bit earlier, so back up in the stream if you missed that. But I do tend to at least show some macro editing in XML on every stream because I use them so much during the stream, and I usually find a bug, and then I go and fix it. I don't have like a proper tutorial video out though, so that's at some point I should do that. Photo Joseph does have a very good tutorial on a methodology for editing macros in XML, so go check out his channel. He does have a very good tutorial on that. In the last stream, I said something about using a Raspberry Pi like a HyperDeck and controlling it over the ATEM software. That is still coming along. It is not quite fixed yet. There is it is on GitHub, and I think somebody mentioned it in the chat. But yeah, it is still in progress. I'm looking forward to that though, because that is a very cheap way to get a media player. Victor says, does your computer monitor need to have a special type of output to connect into the ATEM to share your screen? When I connect mine, it's just black on the display. That's strange. I haven't had any trouble with connecting computers into the ATEM so far. I've got 2 right now plugged in directly. I mean, USB-C to HDMI dongles. One is using the Apple dongle. One is using this weird off-brand one that has 2 HDMI outs. And that they work fine. I guess if you're having trouble, go into your display settings of the computer and mess around, see if changing the resolution or frame rates help. And yeah, shouldn't be a problem though. Anna says, can you make a video tutorial showing step-by-step about the chain of items? Yeah. Do you have a specific question, or like just about the whole rig here? Because this is a lot, and it's also like pretty particular to, my setup. And not applicable to everybody, obviously. So, but yeah, I'm working on my list of videos now to do more edited videos. So I'm definitely interested in what you want to hear about. So, at some point, yeah, I will do a proper video tutorial on or a video walkthrough with diagrams of my whole studio setup. And Anna says, is there any difference in if any of them is the Mini, not the Pro? Yeah, so I've got 2 ATEM Mini Pros here. Of course, like the ATEM Mini does not have the multi-view, which is why I use 2 of the Pros. Because my main reason for having the second one is to be able to show the multi-view on the stream. And I could like loop the HDMI out of one ATEM Mini back into itself. But I think it's a little bit safer to have 2 of them, especially so I can try stuff on the other ATEM without messing up the stream. So, but you could use ATEM Mini, like a regular ATEM Mini, to just add more inputs, right? So you just be adding 3 inputs into your other ATEM Mini Pro that way. Let me get a link to that USB splitter because, yeah, it's cool. So the limit and the reason why this one is so cheap is because it on Mac, what it does is it mirrors the same image on both outputs. So like a lot of people are trying to buy these to run 2 displays, right? There's something about the Mac that like can't actually do 2 displays on one USB-C connection unless you install a driver. So like there's a Dell one where you can install a driver and then you get 2 displays on one USB-C. But I actually wanted to mirror the my computer screen onto 2 separate outputs. One is ATEM Mini, one is this monitor, because this monitor does not have a pass-through. So yeah, that's why I like this thing. So this is the HDMI splitter or HDMI adapter with 2 outputs. and dropping that in the chat. Cool. Jason says, where can I find more information on the custom CSS? Let me just do some link dropping here. That's how we're gonna wrap this up. The chat thing, it's on my GitHub, and I haven't done like a proper video tutorial, but I have a link to the code which has a little bit of setup instructions. And I did run through how to do it on one of the live streams, but I realized those are a little bit hard to find what you're looking for in them. I try to do the table of contents in them, but still there's a lot of streams. And what else have we got? So does using a splitter reduce the quality? No, not usually. Oh, I should mention the other HDMI splitter I'm using here. Drop a link to that. So the splitters don't like reduce quality, but depending on the quality of the splitter, weird things might happen. So, like I've had some that screw with the colors and the colors get all messed up because of I don't know what. So that's not great. But like if it works, it works. And then there's no like, it's either going to work or it's going to like just completely fail. So the, this one, I like, this splitter because it is very small and it is powered via USB. So it's easy to grab a power supply for it. And, that's what I'm using for my main camera. The other thing I'm using it for, though, is the Chromecast, which I totally forgot to mention. So again, I talked about the Apple TV. And my use of the Apple TV is primarily as, I guess, NDI capture, right? So we've got the dolphin swimming around on it now. Great. So, I can run the NDI TV capture, get my phone, use my phone as a camera, which is super cool. Capture Skype calls. The other thing that I would use it for is sharing slides into it, and that is you can AirPlay into the Apple TV, but of course non-Mac computers can't do that. So I'm also interested in seeing how I could use a Chromecast in this workflow. And the Chromecast is great because any browser using Chrome, including a Chromebook, can share into the Chromecast. So I can just like go into my Chrome browser, click cast, and boom, you see this Chrome tab now, right? Which is like, I love it. And if I'm running a slideshow from Chrome, if I'm at an event and people are running Chrome to share their slides, they can actually bring up their slides in Chrome, use Chrome to share their desktop. I can actually, share my whole desktop instead of just this one tab. And that is, again, super, super powerful. The trick with the Chromecast, which was my fear that I mentioned last week, is that the Chromecast it assumes you're going to be playing copyrighted material on it. So it is always HDCP. A lot of devices will negotiate HDCP and either not do it if the device doesn't support it, or only do it if the device does support it. But the Chromecast is just always HDCP. So it does not work if you plug it in directly into the A10 Mini. It just is a black screen. And I was like, okay, let me just try this HDMI splitter. Because I know that some HDMI splitters will remove HDCP. And sure enough, this one does. So again, don't use this to broadcast or record copyrighted material, but it's a great tool to be able to use a Chromecast with the A10 Mini because the Chromecast will only do HDCP out. And now I can just like share my Chrome tab into the A10 Mini wirelessly, which is super cool. So that use those together, and that's how you can get a Chromecast into the A10 Mini. This is probably a good video that I should do as a dedicated video, but in the meantime, you can now know how to do that by watching this stream. So, yeah, that's the deal with the Chromecast. It's a cool way to get essentially wireless slide sharing, wireless screen sharing, wireless slides into the A10 Mini. All right. So, not seeing a whole lot of other questions. I think we're gonna wrap it up. Call it good here. Unless there's anything else that's burning question on your mind. If I missed your question, I'm sorry. Feel free to comment on this video later after it goes live, after it's posted. I try to answer comments on YouTube as well. So come back next week. I think I'm actually not at the same time next week. So, but just come back to the channel. It'll have the live video posted. Yeah, it'll be an hour later next week. So come back next week. Talking about more stuff. I'll see if I can get new things to try out here, but so far I'm pretty happy with the Apple TV added to this workflow. And now I've got my little iPhone camera I can use to show things. So yeah, thank you all very much for joining. And just realized nobody turned my lights different colors because the sun was too bright to see. But if you do super chat me, the lights will change. So I got to remember to remind people about that at the beginning of the show. But yeah, thank you for tuning in, and I will see you all again next week.
Beautiful.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, and we have main engine start. 5.
Flight crew, OTC, close and lock your visors.
4,
Initiate O2 flow.
3, 2, 1,
Okay, go ahead.
0, and liftoff. Liftoff of the space shuttle,
Beautiful, beautiful,
and the shuttle has cleared the tower.
beautiful. Beautiful.